And we should be live on Skills Not Pills. So excited for another episode of Skills Not Pills Movement. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. And Skills Not Pills is an intentional community designed to help people to learn about alternative ways of addressing their life situations, their dis-ease in their body, their mind, or their emotions, and to learn about some alternative treatments or some alternative perspectives that might help them to navigate that disease in a new way. And I always bring on people on this show that have interesting perspectives and stories to share and things to expand your mind. And today I'm really excited to bring my friend Tracey Maxfield on the show. Welcome, Tracey.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm so glad to have this conversation with you today. It's such an important conversation around mental illness with children and teenagers. So Tracey Maxfield is a nurse with over 35 years of experience in healthcare in the UK, USA, and Canada. And she experienced her first episode of clinical depression in her 20s and lived with chronic depression ever since. However, she had an acute depressive episode in 2015, and after years of intense workplace stress, harassment, and bullying, she plummeted into an abyss of darkness, hopelessness, and despair, the likes of which she had never experienced before. We're going to hear a little bit about that today. And encouraged by a psychologist, she actually wrote a blog, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, which we're going to find out about today too. And, you know, Tracey, you've got like an interesting passion because of what you've experienced. You've got an interesting passion of helping teenagers and 11 to 15 talk about bullying and mental illness. So I'm really excited to hear more about your journey. I know that you've appeared in a number of different news outlets and you've been featured in some magazines about this topic. And so tell us a little bit about how you got started with this journey of talking about mental health and depression.
Okay, so when I actually fell down the rabbit hole, it was, quote, my worst experience ever. Honestly, can't believe I'm still here today. I must be honest, I came so close to ending my life many times. When I started the blog, it was to try and get my friends to really understand what I was going through and to kind of, explain that depression is not just, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm having a bad day. Lots of my friends were doctors, nurses, social workers, psychologists. They encouraged me to write the book. They said, I never knew this. You really got to put this in a book to help other people. When my book was released, my original intention was to promote the book and really talk about bullying and mental illness, mental health awareness. But a few weeks after the book release, I was invited to go to a local middle school to talk to some teenagers ages 11 to 15. And it was an all-day human library. It was 8 hours long. And basically, I thought that they were going to come to talk to me about my book, because I was there as a, quote, new author, to talk about how to write a book and how to publish a book. Except when they all sat at the table, there was groups of anywhere from 6 to 10 had already signed up the week beforehand to come and sit at the table. And as they all sat down and I began talking about the book, they kind of look at me and I'd say, okay, why do you want to talk? And they said, we want to hear how you got out of the rabbit hole. They really wanted to know about depression and how I escaped and the strategies I used and mental illness. And I spent the entire day talking to each group as they came and sat down about bullying, but primarily about mental illness. And they started to share their stories. If they weren't going through a particular mental illness or being bullied, they knew someone that was or had been. And at the end of each session, someone would come up and literally whisper in my ear and confide in me something that they were going through or what was happening. And at the end of 8 hours, I had 65 teenagers come and share their story with me. And I was absolutely overwhelmed. And at that point, when I went home, I was crying my eyes out driving, and I thought, okay, I know how I felt, and I'm an adult. So, you know, I have social skills and coping skills and lots of world experience, and I just about made it. I thought, how are these kids supposed to do it? I mean, 11, 15,
Yeah,
they're
it's so
supposed to be,
young.
I mean, they're supposed to be kids enjoying their life, not, I mean, one girl confided in me that she had just come home from hospital after her second suicide attempt. She was 15.
Wow.
I mean, it's
15.
15.
Second suicide
And
attempt.
exactly, another boy, 13 years old, just sobbed into my shoulder and asked me when could he get out of his rabbit hole because he'd been down there for 7 years.
7 years down the rabbit
And,
hole.
and he was 13. So how young was he when all this first started? And it just broke my heart. And I did lots of research when I got home the next few days, and I was just horrified at the statistics. And so I thought, you know what? I'm changing my purpose. I'm going to, yes, I'm going to talk about mental illness and stigma, but I'm going to focus on children because they need our help. We're losing a generation. I mean, 16 teenagers every single day end their life by suicide. And actually, I believe that number is much higher because that statistic is old. And the most recent statistic that came out 2 weeks ago was 3,041 students in grades 9 through 12 attempt suicide daily. That's just,
Wow,
nine,
that's
isn't that
crazy.
horrific? Isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's just grades 9 through 12. And in the research commentary, they said that the grades less than grade 9, they anticipate another at least 1,000 are attempting suicide daily. And I'm like, this is beyond horrific. It is so scary and it's getting worse. We've got to do something. We're losing them and it's not right.
Yeah, we definitely need to do something. So what's some of the things that you share with these kids when they come to you and they ask for support? Like, how do you get out of this depression, this rabbit hole, what do you share with them?
And so, first of all, I give them hope. I tell them that they will get out of the rabbit hole, but it will take time. I explain to them that it's important they keep reaching out for help. If they're on meds, take the medications, talk to their parents or a confidant, talk to their therapist. So I keep reinforcing that, and that's typical of anybody. We all need to keep doing that. What I ask them is, do they have a dream? Do they have a wish? You know, if they didn't have this mental illness, what would they like to be doing? And all of them usually have a goal, something. And I say, okay, so this is what you need to hold on to. This is something that's really important. And I keep reinforcing to them that it may take a little longer for them to get out of their rabbit hole because I've had the life experiences. And so I could pull on some skills and strategies that they haven't yet developed, but that doesn't mean that they won't get out of their rabbit hole. And so it's that hope and encouragement. And it's that really telling them how important they are and how loved they are. And, you know, they'll say something like, no one understands or no one loves me. And I use some humor because kids still in their midst of darkness, like adults, can find a little bit of humor. And I say, but you're talking to me, so you have one person that understands. And I'm telling you right now, I believe in you and I love you and I've got your back. So we can do this. I'm with you. You know how to get a hold of me. If you're having a bad day, a bad moment, reach out. I'll be there for you. And I think it's just that knowing that someone has been there, walked the walk, talked the talk per se, and got up the other side and is saying to them, I know what it's like, 100%, but I know you can do this. But you've got to keep going a little bit more. It's going to be hard. You're going to have really bad days, but you can have good days. And that seems to lift them a little bit and more positive. For example, the 13-year-old boy, I spent 20 minutes talking with him as he just sobbed his heart into my shoulder. And I kept reinforcing and talking and encouraging. And after, when he calmed down, he walked away and he said, I feel better now. And at the end of the afternoon, I was sitting in the library where the tables were, and I was making some notes, and he passed by and he saw me. He stopped at the door. He was waving, like, you know how kids wave?
Yeah.
He was waving and waving and had this big beaming smile. And I looked at him and I went, hi. And he said, thank you. And he ran off. And I thought, okay, there was a moment where there was a connection, that he got it. And that's it. You can't solve their problems. They will not heal instantly, but it's that encouragement and support. And that's what helped me when my psychologist or someone I met who had been there would say, I get it. It's going to take a lot of work, but you've come this far. You can keep going on. You have a whole future ahead of you. And that's what I keep reinforcing with the kids. They always think they have no future. Yes, they do.
That's so amazing. They think they have no future. But isn't it funny how the brain does that?
Mm-hmm. And I keep telling them, yes, you do. And, you know, it's the things like, what are you good at in class? What is your favorite class? And it's drawing on those strengths. You know, well, I can draw really well. Then that's a gift. Because guess what? I can't really draw that well. So,
so you
got,
can.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you have a gift that I don't have. Another girl, the one who had attempted suicide, she loves writing and she journals. And I said, I journal all the time. And I encourage you to keep journaling, because by sharing your experiences and your thoughts, I said, there's no reason why, when you're feeling strong, you can't write a book or you can't start a blog. And really connect with teenagers the same age as you on, guess what? I went through it too, and you can get better. And I think it's that sense of purpose. It's that sense of, you know what? You can do something wonderful and you could help people. And so just keep going. It's a horrible journey, but keep going, because there's a light. And it's that positive reinforcement, that validation.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. And I also want to just point out, like, I was reading something recently, another teaching by Brené Brown, who was talking about like one of the single most effective healing ways to help somebody heal is simply to witness and listen, you know, to have empathy, not sympathy, but empathy.
No, empathy.
And yeah, there's this whole video on that. I don't know, did you share it, or I saw it from somewhere.
I saw it. It was a friend sent it to me, and then I shared it. But it was so true. It was the empathy is sitting there and being there in the moment.
With the person.
With the person, being present in their space. And sometimes you're not able to speak. You just listen, or you just sit there and you touch, or you hug, or you offer that understanding and comfort. That means more than the person. I mean, if those who haven't seen the video, the sympathy is actually standing at the top of the rabbit hole, per se. Won't go down the ladder, but is going, okay, would you like a sandwich?
Or like, oh, wow, you're in a really bad space. Oh, look at you down there. You know, like, wow, you're having a hard time down there.
Down there, yeah. Can I throw you a sandwich or something? It's like,
or, can't you climb your way up the ladder? You know, like offering those helpful things that aren't helpful.
That aren't helpful.
This brings me to a point, because I remember when we were having our pre-conversation, you were talking about that. You went into the school to talk about one subject, and you ended up talking about depression. You ended up talking about, they wanted you to talk about that. And then the next group came in to see you, and they were like, well, aren't you going to talk about depression? Because that's what we need to talk about. And you were surprised by that. And I want to talk about that because, you know, the thing that I find really interesting is that when we're hurting, what's really helpful is to talk to somebody we know has been through what we're going through,
Mhm.
not the quote unquote expert that has the degree and the blah, 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 because maybe if they haven't gone through what you've gone through, you're sort of like, yeah, whatever. You kind of want to talk to the person that's been through what you're going through. Talk a little bit about that real life expertise.
Definitely. I mean, and especially with children and teenagers, there is trust. They've really got to trust that whoever they are sharing everything with um, knows exactly what they're going through. And so, yes, every medical profession who has studied mental illness has a valuable contribution. But if they can't actually say to the person, I know what you're going through, I had depression, immediately you switch off because you're just going to give me a textbook story. And so I was asked to go to an English class, and actually it was to talk about how to use imagery and how to write using maybe a volcano to convey emotions, because I have lots of illustrations in my book. And there was an example of I had this horrible day, and I was actually typing my blog as I was experiencing it, and I likened my brain to an erupting volcano. And she said, I've got some kids struggling in English class. They were 15 years old. Can you come and talk about how you can conceive an image and then relate that to emotions? So off I went. I actually took also all the illustrations I had blown up really big for my book release party. So I took them and they were displayed behind me. And immediately, as soon as I started putting them up, I could hear the kids whispering to one another, that's what I feel like, or look at that, that's what that's what I keep doing. And I thought, I wonder how interested they're going to be. And then we started the class, and I started to talk, and immediately a boy put up his hand and said, where did you get these images? And I said, well, they're all illustrations from my book. And he went, you know that one? And he pointed to a stick figure throwing hands up in the air with this enormous black cloud coming behind. And he said, that's how I feel. And that opened the door, because all of a sudden, everyone in the class were like, okay, he said what I was thinking. He said it, and I responded and said, you know, if I know exactly how you feel. I felt like that. That's why we drew it and used it in the book. It must be really hard for you. And it just opened the door to him talking about how he felt. And it just went from there. It was one after the other after the other. And I could see the English teacher just looking at me, and I'm not pulling it back to let's talk about English, because they wanted to share. And I was very surprised because they were very open and honest, but very articulate, because lots of them would ask questions of, so what can I say to my friend? Or my mum, that's my mum. That's exactly how my mum is. When I go home, what can I say to my mum? And I was so impressed, because I thought, wow, not only are they interested, but they care and they really want to know. And so that was the class. It was an hour long. And afterwards, they all came up and they were hugging me and thanking me. And the English teacher came up later, and I said, I don't think it went the direction you went. And she said, no. And then she goes, oh, I thought maybe I had 3 kids in my class who had some issues. She goes, I didn't realize it was all of them.
Yeah. And I
And
think that's really, this is the problem, is that the kids aren't getting the help that they need, you know,
no,
and the
because
school system's not working, to get them the help that they need. I know that just in our particular high school, just down the street, where I live in Texas, and we have a great school district. It's, got really great ratings. They do a great job. And did you know, once a year we do this counseling thing, for the students, and we go in and we talk about like what's the direction the kid's
yeah,
taking. And and I talked to the counselor, and I said, well, do you ever get a chance to meet with the kids outside of this, this particular thing that we're doing? She's like, no. She said, it would take, if I met with each student for 1 hour, it would take me all year to do that.
And that is, no, I 100% agree. And that's part of my mission, is what I am trying to get people to understand, and schools especially. Mental health is as important as our physical health, our general health. Our brains control everything. So if our brain doesn't work, then it affects everything else in our body. It's not the heart. Everyone thinks, oh, it's the heart that keeps you alive. Actually, no, it's not. It's your brain. And so we need to start introducing mental health awareness as soon as kids go to school, even in ECE. Because if we start teaching strategies on how to manage fear and emotions and stress and anger and anxiety, which are normal components of mental health, right? We have an exam, we all go, right? Or we get dropped from a team that we love. We go through these emotions, they're normal. If we're taught how to respond and identify them properly, then it'll give us good tools as we go into the other grades, because 50% of all kids will show signs and symptoms of a mental illness by the age of 14. 75% of all mental illnesses will show up by the age of 24. So chances are you got a lot of kids in school that have a mental illness or have symptoms that no one is identifying. And instead they'll pass it off to, oh, they're being difficult, or that, you know, they're just a bully or something, without looking at what is going on and helping them.
And it starts at home. You know, I just got to say, guilty as charged with what I'm about to say. So just revealing ahead of time, guilty as charged. But I I see cases where I even had a recent interaction where someone sort of, a parent's solution for, you know, a problem that I raised is, oh, it's Friday, just go home and have a glass of wine. It's Friday. The weekend's here. Just have a glass of wine. And I did that for years. You know, that was my strategy for decades, was just go have a glass of wine or two or three or an entire bottle, and, you know, or even a little bit more than a bottle if that wasn't really doing it. So when you're at home and you're that parent that's like, well, just have a glass of wine and just forget about that problem, you're contributing to your child's mental health issues, because they see you doing that. They see you not facing your problems. They see you not facing the challenges in the relationship. They feel everything. So they feel the underlying tension. They feel the anger, the resentment. They hear the bit back words. They hear it in your tone. They hear it in your very tone of voice, and they know it's not all okay, even though you're like, everything's fine. They know that's a lie. So I think that, as you know, if we really want our kids to be healthy, parents need to stop lying to themselves and to others about how it really is going, and take some responsibility for it.
I agree. And I mean, children, teenagers are very, very perceptive. They know if you genuinely like them, if you genuinely care. They know, they can see it. They read body signals very, very well. And I mean, I grew up in an extremely abusive household. And what parents need to understand as well is, whatever they are going through, it does impact their child. And early childhood trauma is known to be a significant contributory factor in the likelihood of your child turning to crime, or turning to drugs or alcohol, or developing a mental illness, becoming a bully, joining a gang. All those factors shape their brains, because their brains are developing. I mean, their brain is not fully developed until the age of 24, and that's the frontal lobe.
And telling them to like toughen up is not the solution.
No,
get a thicker skin, toughen up. That is, if your child's upset and crying and affected, your child might actually have more emotional intelligence than you do if you think that they need to toughen up.
Yes. And I mean, if you feel toughen up is the word, then you actually need to sit and talk to them and explain what you mean by that. And then again, you're going to have to explain, okay, so you're a much better person. You've got skills and confidence, and you can be the better person, and you can just say to them, that's not fair, that's mean, and I don't have to take that and walk away. And there's strategies of doing it without that, I hate that toughen up, grow a new one, you know, punch them in the face. No.
Or don't let anybody see you cry, or don't let anybody get the better of you. Like, all those things, they aren't helpful. And
no, they're not. And
if everybody could, Tracy, I don't know if you've read the 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, but if we could just if we could make an entire class, every grade school kid studying that book and understanding it, and get them started off there. And by the way, parent education on that too, that would be really wonderful. I think we would see a whole different world.
No, and I absolutely agree. And those are the essential components of developing good mental health and a good value system for our kids. Kids no longer understand the value of compassion and understanding and kindness and helping. They are inherently, all children, with the exception of maybe psychopaths or sociopaths, which take a little while, have an inherent need to want to like and care for people. You see children that always go to the older person with a disability or try to help someone, and then we kind of squash that out of them as they work their way through school. But we should be helping them build up on that, because those are the qualities that are going to help not only themselves, but their fellow classmates who may be bullied or may have a mental illness and may be struggling.
Well, I want to give you another perspective too, is that one thing that I learned on my journey is that actually little children really do want to help. We show up as little helpers. We want to help.
Absolutely.
But when your parent is repressing their emotions, is repressing and not dealing, is distracting, is resorting to whine, is resorting to, bit back words and repressing the anger and hostility and grief and all that, and trying to pretend it's not there, when they're not dealing with their stuff, guess who takes it on for you?
Absolutely.
Your child takes it on, and you're wondering why kids are depressed.
Exactly. We're turning them into adults before they've even had a chance to experience childhood. And the other component is that with some kids, unless they have that emotional intelligence and maybe someone else to talk or confide to, they look up to their parents. They are role models. And so if they see this is the way you actually face adulthood, they will start employing those strategies themselves. And so it's like, okay, well, why did you start drinking at 14? Well, I was being bullied, but mom always drank. So I thought that was the way to deal with my emotions. Or, dad was mean and used to punch walls. So I figured that's how you deal with emotions, And so it's like that monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. And we have to be so careful, because if a child grows up in a family where mother is always disrespected and becomes the target, what does that boy learn as he goes through his life? Well, women, you disrespect women. Everyone in my family did. My mother took it, so it was normal. And we have got to start changing that, because that's why we also have so many problems in today's society, period.
And there's like additional red tape on it. Like, for example, like, you've got tremendous wisdom from what you lived and went through. You survived clinical depression and went through it and came out the other side, and you're out there as an advocate speaking about it. But without a master's degree in counseling, which costs about $100,000 to get, and like 4 years, you can't go counsel in a school system. So this is what I'm talking about. It's like the red tape and the idea that the only way that you can be an expert is to have all of this, certified training in our methodology. But literally, the kids already instinctively know that if they've got depression and they hear your story, they already want to know what you have to say, because you're the one who lived through it.
Yes. And I think actually I'm heading to Kansas in a couple of weeks, and I will be appearing on a TV show there, but I've already been invited to go to the school to talk. And so there is a little bit more recognition in some states, not all, And I think that's the challenge, is that every state is allowed to follow their own kind of curriculum and who comes into schools and who doesn't. We really, yes, absolutely. Counselors are essential and we need to increase them. I mean, there
Yeah,
needs
and
to
we
be
need to make
way more
the
counselors.
barrier of entry a lot lower.
Yes.
A
And we,
lot lower.
no, and I
Let's
agree.
fund people that have an interest in that to actually
Yes,
go get that degree if that's what's required, to actually go get that, because that's a huge amount of money. That's ridiculous,
absolutely.
and they don't get paid anything either.
Exactly.
Like,
And the thing is that at the end of the day, it is learned experience. And I think
yes.
that's what we also need to start instilling in our kids. We're so busy that they get a grade point average of 4.0 and go to college, but they haven't learned the rudimentary skills of life to
Well,
carry them into adulthood.
yeah, they haven't learned skills for processing their emotions, because
Yeah,
even though these counselors are great and they go to this, $100,000 program, they don't come out the other side teaching skills. Where are
no.
the skills?
And that I agree. And it's like we have to almost relook at education and revamp it to accommodate the new generations coming in, that we have to do it differently. Right now, there's a lot of push in trying to get mental illness and mental health education into high schools. Absolutely, that's a wonderful idea. But why wait until high school when we know that 6 and 7 year olds will likely have a depression or be bullied or have some kind of traumatic childhood experiences? What about them? We're actually going to wait until they become 13 to then try and
Well, this is
undo
our
it?
whole medical system. We wait until someone's dying before we actually have a solution for them. We don't do proactive health. And
No.
so what we're really talking about here is proactive skill
Yes.
development early in life for creating the potential for mental health, so that we don't have to get to this other end of the spectrum where now we've got to like slap a label and a diagnosis on someone, which by the way I disagree with as well,
No.
because I think that just
No.
enables the whole
No.
thing.
No. I
It's
don't like
like the
labels.
victim mentality, and so therefore I can't do it. I disagree with it. I went through it myself. I see from the inside out how it let me be a victim, and it let me stay in the diagnosis, and it let me stay in the behaviors, because I could just say, well, I'm this, so therefore I can't
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
myself. No, I don't even want to see that go into the high schools. Like, no,
No. No.
there's
No.
skills, period.
Yeah,
Like,
no, no, and I don't agree with labels. Absolutely not. And again, my philosophy is, let's deal with the problem upstream, not downstream where it's the waterfall, because everyone is dealing with the opioid epidemic. Well, lots of that was because we failed to deal with everything upstream. People just didn't become addicted to opioids. Look at what the child went through, what happened during their school years. I mean, there is a reason why people end up on drugs. There is a reason why people end up on the streets. Little Joey at 5 is not saying, when I'm 18, I want to take fentanyl and be homeless.
right, he's not. But like when mom says, hey, you have an exam today and you're really stressed out, so here's a Xanax,
And again,
to
it's,
their 12-year-old or 13-year-old.
yes,
Hello?
I know,
That's not okay, ever.
it's not okay.
It's not.
And it's like as I said, it's like we need to revamp, and it's huge. And I mean, I've had lots of negative mail telling me that I think I live in this idyllic world and that everything will change and work out. And I'm very transparent. I know what's going on, and I know it's going to take a lot of work. But if everyone had that sentiment, we'd never change anything. So at least I'm doing something to try and help and create change. And I think what people need to realize is it's not one person. It's not just the parents' problem. It's not just the teacher's problem. It's a society problem.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
total society
it's
consciousness issue.
we need to come together and start working as a community to help everyone. I mean, and that includes our kids and our single parents, and even our older people that have disabilities or dementia. Again, that's another one where there's labeling and exclusion. And so we need to get back to that community setting. And I mean, decades ago, before the wars, that's how people lived. It takes a village to raise a child. We've got to try and get back to that kind of philosophy again and start supporting and encouraging and being there for people. We've gotten to, in our quest for privacy, which is the laugh, we want privacy, we want to do our own thing, and it's nobody's business, and yet then we go and post everything on social media.
We can't decide, can we?
And it's, the irony is that it's not just the community that know, we've actually exposed it to the entire world. And so it's like, what a contradiction. So I think we're so confused because everyone has lost the direction and we don't quite know where we're going. And that's true of Canada and the States, and the United Kingdom right now is, dealing with lots of issues. But Australia, it's not just pinpointing one country. Globally, we're having struggles. Globally, children and teenagers are dealing with epidemic proportions of suicide, bullying, and mental illness.
Well, and I want you to look at that and also notice that the epidemic is happening in the United States. And I don't know the most recent statistic, but I know that at least a year ago, it was that the United States has 20% of the population of the world and consumes 80% of the world's pharmaceuticals. Hello.
Hello, indeed. Yes.
And
yes.
So you wonder why there's problems and the teens are having issues and they're checking out and they don't know what to do with themselves and they want to like commit suicide and they're cutting themselves. It's like, start taking a look at who's, what's the thing that's changed? What's the major thing that's changed? And you start understanding it a little bit better. Plus, the food that we eat is terrible, because I know on your mental health journey, you must have come across food as an issue in your feelings, like how you're feeling in your body.
Yes. And again, there's enough research about, we know the impact of high fatty foods. We know the impact of additives.
And fast foods and
fat foods.
And soda.
Foods. Absolutely. And sugar. All of that impacts brain health. And so we've got to, everything is so intricately connected that we've really got to get back to the basics of healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, exercise the brain, social connectedness. We all need to belong. We want to be loved. We want to have friends that are supportive, that will listen to us, instead of your friend is not your iPhone.
Yeah, your friend is not your iPhone. That should be the new slogan. Your friend is not your iPhone.
It's not. It's great that you can have that connection, but 8 hours a day is not going to help you. It doesn't help your self-worth. It doesn't help your mental worth, your emotional worth, and physically, what is it doing to you? Because you haven't gone out there and exercised. LinkedIn posted yesterday from Japan, they've now made an iPhone with a spoon and fork attached so you can read your iPhone and eat at the same time. How absurd is this?
That's absurd.
Is this absurd? So again, they're doing all this, and it may be a gimmick and just a ha-ha, but the point is there's somebody out there that's going, I love this. I'm going to follow up with it.
Yeah, because I can't be without my iPhone even while I eat.
Right. So what next? We're going to have special iPhones that can go you can
That's
use
crazy.
when you're on the toilet and things like.
Yeah, like if you drop it in, it won't
right?
die.
Right.
Toilet-proof iPhone.
Right. It's like, what next?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you say the word silent retreat, and that's like the scariest thing ever to,
yes.
Anybody in our culture that's involved in any of these things.
But, there was a TV program on a couple of weeks ago where they did a 6-month project with kids and asked them, we would like you to give up all social media. And you can just imagine, I mean, there was hysterics and crying, and I'll lose my friends and I won't be popular and everything. But they said, we just want you to do it. And so they handed over all their devices. And the first week, the parents reported they were very argumentative and very emotional. And then they finally started to realize, okay, one, they were sleeping better. They were sleeping better and they were sleeping longer. They paid more attention in class. The teachers noted they were more interactive. And then they sought out kids in school that also weren't on social media. So at recess, they actually spoke to them. After school, they joined a club. And so they started to do activity. And then they sat and had meals with their parents, and the parents agreed no social media at the table. And so at the end of 6 weeks, the kids all reported that they actually felt better and recognized that whilst they do like to have that connectedness on social media, they didn't need to be on it all day, and that they could pick times when they should be on it. And it changed, and then they encouraged their friends to change. Some did, some didn't. But kids do finally get that realization of, it is not the linchpin of my life that makes me and holds me in society as the popular one. And so they're trying now to get schools to start adopting that of, why do you need to take them to school? Or if you need to connect with your parent or a family member, then you can only use them at certain times. But when I went to the school to talk, they were all walking around with their phones. Well,
Yeah, and plus there's like spinal problems that happen because
yes.
every inch forward the head is causes pain in the back, like proportional pain. It adds like
Yeah.
10 pounds of weight for every inch and then people are like this on their phone. So
Yes.
kids are having scoliosis now and problems with their spine. And when you affect the spinal column, you also affect mental health because that affects out of the brain.
Absolutely.
So
And
there's
so,
that too.
you know, schools are saying we want a bully-free zone and we want a gun-free zone. Why aren't we having, we want an electronics-free zone? Why do you, I don't understand. You go in to learn. Why do you need to be on your iPhone during class? How are you learning if you're texting? You weren't
Yeah.
allowed to pass notes. When I was in school, there was no such thing. But if you pass notes in class, then you were in trouble. What's the difference if you're texting about the teacher?
Yeah, exactly. And that's bullying in the classroom too.
Yeah, you know,
Wow. Well,
so
you can see like how what a big complex nested ball of wax this whole field is.
and,
Dang.
and,
We could talk
and I
for
mean,
hours about this because there's so many facets to it.
there's so many facets, and we're sitting here going, how do we even begin to influence change? Well, how do you think our children and our teenagers are, who are trying to grow and develop to become adults in this world, if their parents can't make sense of it?
Yeah, because they're just like deer in the headlights. Like I see
Right,
that with my 19-year-old a lot. Is he's just kind of like, Mom, I don't even know where to go next. Like it's so
right.
confusing. It's
It's so
overwhelming. Is too many blocks. It's like people, did you know that for jobs these days, you have to apply online? And not only do you can't go into the store and talk to somebody and be like a person. You've got to apply for the job online. You don't even know who these people are. And not only that, but now many of the chains are making you do an online video interview of yourself. You're not even looking at anybody but the camera and yourself, and you're like answering questions, and you've got like 30 seconds to come up with the answer, like on his video. And you're already uncomfortable looking. Who do you know that's not uncomfortable looking at themselves? They can't even look at themselves in the mirror.
exactly.
And now they're supposed to look at themselves on this video and like do a job interview with an invisible person
I
who they don't
agree.
know how they're going to react. Like this is really unfair to our youth.
Oh, it's,
I
and
mean,
I mean, well,
it's like the most disconnected you could get.
exactly. It devalues them, but also we're already telling them we don't need human connection. You know, it's like, well, the next thing, why don't they just get artificial intelligence to interview? I mean,
Yeah.
we're saying we want to get back to how things used to be, and then on the other hand, we're doing video interviews as the way to conduct an interview to see if you can, go and work in a store or go and work at McDonald's. And it's like, no, you can't. There's so much you cannot tell from a video interview. First off, it's only from the head up. But secondly, you don't have an opportunity to really tune into body language and reactions and that connection. Like, there's some people, you instantly meet and feel a connection with, or there's others that you go, ooh, not sure. And then there's people that you think you're a little different, but as the person starts sharing ideas and talking, you're thinking, wow, you've got an amazing insight or a great sense of humor. And I'd love for you to
Well, I mean,
work.
and this method sort of excludes shy people,
Well,
I mean, because if you have you should have seen my son recording these. It was horrible. So anyway,
oh,
I just want to say, like, we've got
I
to really
did.
think about these issues, because it has a huge impact
Yes,
on mental health. And if, this is the wave of the future, we've got to really start considering, is that the kind of future we want? Like, what's the projection on that? The disconnection and kids wanting to kill themselves, and nobody is able to talk to them about depression, because you're not supposed to talk about that unless you've
yeah.
got, a $100,000 4-year degree, with so many clinical hours. I mean, we're really we're tying the hands of school districts to be able to cope with the problems at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's overwhelming. Just for them to try and cope with the bullying component is bad enough. Now throwing in the mental health awareness and the mental illness, I mean, they're so understaffed. No, this is a huge problem. And again, if society is saying, well, it is what it is, okay, so if you're not prepared to do anything, what are we going to do as these children attempt suicide?
Or bring the guns to school, like we've had, where we've
Right.
had these school
Where
massacres.
exactly the school massacres, because they will continue, um, or they will turn to crime, they will turn to drugs and escalate that problem.
Well, the drugs issues definitely picked up. So,
Oh, and also,
yeah.
I mean, 70. So in the juvenile system, they said 70% of all those under the age of 31 in the prison system have a mental illness, which has not been recognized. And so they then have to go through this whole skills and teaching and education so they can leave the prison system and then function in society. And that again is huge, because they have to completely take a 360. And so wouldn't it be nice if we could avoid all that and utilize that money upstream, and let's get the kids now,
Yeah. Get the young ones started on some skills, and, let's just, do a GoFundMe campaign and buy a bunch of the 4 agreements for, every school district.
it's
And
just
just, I'm sure Domingo Ruiz would be happy to offer a discount, but I mean, we got to start somewhere where we start teaching kids some fundamental principles to live by that we can all agree on, that we can,
absolutely.
across belief systems, that we can agree, that's practical, that's skills based, that we can actually all agree on.
I
That'd be
agree.
great.
I mean, we do have to, and that then will help generations coming after them. But hopefully, if we instill these values in them now, imagine what they can do to empower and help people ahead of them and older than them. I mean, society could evolve into being a much more kind and compassionate and understanding. Everyone is so negative and judgmental, but again, are not willing to do anything to change the situation or change their situation. Uh, it's, as I said, it's a huge problem, and I will not solve it. I get that. I just,
At least she'll try
I am going
to
to,
get the ball rolling on it.
I'm going to try. And if I
Okay.
can reach a couple of kids or on a couple of people, then that's good. That means that you've helped them. And that's all I can do. But as I said, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we went way over our normal time, but the conversation was so amazing. I just kept rolling with it. So thank you for coming on, and hopefully
Thank you.
everybody that watches this back gets a lot of benefit from being from witnessing this and having this being part of this dialogue. And where can people get a hold of you if they want to like talk to you about coming to speak to their school, or if they want to find out more about your movement and what you're creating?
So they just could either Google my name or Escaping Rabbit Hole, or go to my website, www.traceymaxfield.com, and it's everything you could ever want on there.
Wonderful. And I'll put a link below so you guys can check it out. And thanks a lot for tuning in to Skills Not Pills Movement. Tracey, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate you
Thank you.
sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Everybody have a great week.